What is up, guys? It is Marcus from Perspective Sports, and today I have my horsepower shirt on because I'm a Boise State fan. And college football is right around the corner. We're already entering spring, so that means spring football starting. And what other way to start the spring season than with a way too early college football playoff top 25, which I have in store. So without further ado, let's dive right into it. At number 25, we have UCF, who was 13-0 last season. The records shown are their last season's record, not my predictions for the team. But I believe UCF lost a lot when they lost head coach Scott Frost in Nebraska, and UCF will still be a really formidable team, but not as good as they were last year. They'll be playing on a lot tougher schedule versus North Carolina, FAU with Lane Kiffin, and Pittsburgh out of conference. At number 24, we have Fresno State. Fresno State is returning 15 total guys, 8 on offense and 7 on defense, on a team that beat Boise State and got really hot at the end of the season, led by the defense that only gave up 13.5 points per game all season when you take out the Alabama and Washington games. At number 23, we have LSU, who's returning 9 starters from their solid defense a year ago, and with Ed Orgeron entering his second year as a full-time head coach, all signs point up for the LSU Tigers. At number 22, we have Florida Atlantic, and Lane Kiffin had this FAU team in the front of my mind. They were extremely fun to watch, extremely well coached, and dominated their conference, and will do the same thing this season. And looking at their non-conference schedule at Oklahoma, it's a potential upset with Oklahoma transitioning into the Kyler Murray era. I don't think they'll win that game, but it's something. FAU's offense is very high powered. Then they have versus Air Force, versus Bethune-Cookman, and at UCF, which I think will be a huge game. And at number 21, we have TCU, who I was really reluctant to even put in the top 25. But when I look at their conference, it enabled me to do so. The Horned Frogs are losing all but one offensive starter, but the Big 12 doesn't necessarily play a lot of defense, and TCU does have the best defense in the conference. Gary Patterson, TCU's head coach, will get an offense going sooner or later in the year, but it won't be easy playing against Big 12 offenses and against Ohio State, albeit in their backyard in Arlington, Texas. At number 20, we have Notre Dame. And Notre Dame's offensive line was by far the best in the country last year, but it is split up with Nelson and McGlinchey heading into the draft. But I do believe it's still going to be amongst the country's best offensive lines, and that will create a lot of opportunities for quarterbacks, running backs, and overall the entire offense. And this Notre Dame defense is returning 9 defensive starters. At number 19, we have Mississippi State. New head coach, but it's a good hire. Former Penn State offensive coordinator Joe Moorhead, who I believe will have an excellent opening season with the Bulldogs. He still has quarterback Nate Fitzgerald and 7 other offensive starters, while returning 8 defensive starters as well. So it won't be as much as a learning curve. He still has guys that have played together. And I overall think Mississippi State will still be a very formidable team in the SEC. At number 18, we have Penn State, and they're losing a lot, only returning 3 starters on defense and losing their overall impact player on offense, Saquon Barkley. It's hard to see Penn State being top 4 in their own conference this year, which is the Big Ten, with the season, and they have a lot of holes to fill, and I'm interested to see how they go about that. At number 17, we have West Virginia. The Mountaineers are returning 14 starters, 7 on offense, 7 on defense, including quarterback Will Grier, who I think made the right decision going back to college and will definitely have a huge season this year. At number 16, we have USC, and the Trojans will most definitely take a step back this year without Sam Darnold, but will still be a formidable team and a contender in the Pac 12. At number 15, we have Stanford. The Cardinals are returning a lot of starters from last year, and giving David Shaw an experienced group of guys only guarantees this Stanford team is going to be dangerous. At number 14, we have Virginia Tech, and this is a hard team to gauge. It was hard to gauge last year, but the Hokies are returning 7 offensive guys and 6 defensive guys, but lost their catalyst on defense in Tremaine Edmonds, and on top of losing him, they lost 2 more linebackers and 2 cornerbacks. Quarterback Josh Jackson will have to play a full season as he did kind of hit a freshman wall, but if he plays a full season, I do think Virginia Tech will be in good hands. At number 13, we have the Boise State Broncos. The Broncos quarterback, Brett Rippon, will take all of the snaps this year, and he split some last year with Montel Crozart, which was a good decision, and he added another layer to the Broncos offense. But having Rippon as the guy will only do good things for Boise State, but they did lose offensive weapons like Cedric Wilson, Crozart, and Jake Rowe. But I do have trust in head coach Brian Harsin and Brett Rippon to make sure this offense flows, and they're still returning 9 out of 11 starters from that side of the ball. At number 12, we have Michigan, and the Jim Harbaugh era has been underwhelming at best. And that could spell trouble for Harbaugh, who's banking everything on transfer Shea Patterson, who's coming from Ole Miss. So it'll be interesting to see if he can finally be that guy to get Michigan over the edge. At number 11, we have Auburn. And Auburn's losing a lot on both sides of the ball, but just like Boise State, I really believe in their quarterback head coach duo with quarterback Jerry Stidham and head coach Gus Malzahn, whose job was on the line last year and responded with victories over both Alabama and Georgia. At number 10, we have Washington, who's going to be heavily reliant on their defense this season after losing center Cole Shelton, guard Andrew Kirkland, wide receiver Dante Pettis, and tight end Will Dissly. But Washington has been the most consistent team in the Pac-12 over the last handful of years, thanks to head coach Chris Peterson, and it will remain that this season. But there's no guarantee Pac-12 after dark won't cause problems for Washington as it already done in the past. At number 9, we have Ohio State, and Ohio State is losing a lot, and I think they'll take a loss or two they shouldn't this season, and Ohio State will have a quarterback battle we all should keep our eyes on between Dwayne Haskins and Tate Martell. At number 8, we have Michigan State, and Michigan State loses almost nothing heading into this season, returning 10 of their 11 starters on offense and 9 of the 11 on defense. Michigan State is a real sleeper to make the college football playoff and a team I think we should all keep our eyes on. At number 7, we have Wisconsin. The Badgers are extremely well coached by head coach Paul Christ and came within one game of the college football playoff. The Badgers will most definitely have another solid season, but will they be able to get through the Big Ten East to get into the college football playoff is my question. At number 6, we have Miami, Florida. Miami popped a year early, and I was one of those people that expected Miami to be decent last year, but this would be the year. And I think Miami's really going to be a dangerous team this year, returning 9 defensive guys and 8 offensive guys, which is excellent news for Hurricane fans everywhere. Is the U back? I think so. Number 5, we have Oklahoma, who lost Baker Mayfield, but he's being replaced by a former 5-star All-American, dual-threat quarterback, Texas A&M transfer, Kyler Murray, who looked excellent in his extremely limited role last year, but I expect similar production from the OU offense. At number 4, we have Florida State. Florida State returns 9 offensive starters and had an absolutely loaded defensive recruiting class, and they lost 7 players on that side of the ball. So they have a lot of shoes to fill, but I really think Willie Taggart will figure that out, and this Florida State offense will get rolling, and they will be a dangerous team and a real contender to win the ACC. At number 3, we have Clemson, who was outclassed by Alabama last year, but is still a really good team with quarterback Kelly Bryant, and a guy whose name I think will be deep in the Heisman discussion late in the season. And the Tigers are also returning 8 players on offense and defense, so that's a good thing for Dabo Swinney and the Clemson Tigers. At number 2, we have the Georgia Bulldogs, who were absolutely stunned last year by fellow SEC member Alabama in the national championship, but I think they'll be back. They're returning 7 guys on offense and 5 guys on defense. Mix that with the number 1 overall recruiting class. Georgia will be back and more dangerous than ever. And at number 1, we have none other than the defending national champions, and they've lost a lot of impact players like Deshaun Hand, Anthony Everett, Calvin Ridley, Minka Fitzpatrick, Rashaan Evans. You go down the list. But they're returning 9 offensive starters, including Tua Tagovailoa and Jalen Hurts. And remember, in the championship, they were led by freshmen in passing yards, rushing yards, and receiving yards. This Alabama team is built to succeed and is based on succession. How many times have we said Alabama has lost this many players and they're replaced by guys he's recruited and guys who are deep on the depth chart? Alabama will most definitely be the number 1 team in the country. Well, there you guys have it. This has been my way too early, keywords way too early. This is all liable to change. Top 25 entering the spring season. And I look forward to seeing what you guys have to say down in the comment section, showing me your top 25 and overall just discussing college sports. I have also started a gaming channel. Well, I've had it, but I'm just now uploading to it. And if you guys want to go over there and subscribe, you can play with me. I'll be on Twitch. I'll be doing a lot of different things so that we can all interact and talk sports or just talk anything and just have a good time. I play Rainbow Six, Fortnite, Madden, 2K, really any game that you'd likely play, I probably do play, and we can play together and just have a good time. So go over. The links will be down in the description. I'll see you guys next time. I'm out.